we'll get this thing started, and Michael Brown will kick us off.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's nice to dress up like this occasionally, and I rolled up my pant leg so you can see my sock, because otherwise you couldn't otherwise, unless we wear capris, which we just talked about is generally not as fashionable in America. So my role today is to talk about the why. The what part, I think they're going to talk a little bit more today with you about. And let me just start by saying that this whole experience for me, I've been in, this is my 27th year in public service, and if you count my educational requirements to get here, it's another 6 or so. I don't know of another experience that has been as rewarding as it's been to work with these folks behind me. It's just been fantastic. And it's been so, you know, you look for, candidly at work, you hope to get both personal and professional satisfaction out of your work, and that's been what this experience has been like for me. So just to share that with you, it's very powerful. And I don't know that all of you will get the depth of that experience because you weren't with them this whole time, but it's been fantastic. So why did we go through this exercise? What's the reason for that? So for me, one of the things you want to have is if you believe that there's a strong relationship between how happy you are at work and how successful you are in delivering services to the community, then I think we're all on the same page, right? In my opinion, if you create a workplace that brings out the best in your employees, to me, if you do that really, really successfully, what it results in is great service delivery to our community. So the whole exercise, the project in and of itself is intentionally trying to look at all of you and all the rest of the people in our organization and how do we make this a fantastic place to work? What ideas can we have across a broad spectrum to make it both personally and professionally rewarding for you? And then the end result being how do we deliver great services to our community? So in my opinion, that's probably the #1 responsibility of every single manager of employees is finding out what makes people get excited. What are you passionate about? How do you create a nexus between they're passionate about and what they do? And so that's their exercise. That's what they spent the time working on, and the results you're going to hear a lot more about. So anyway, with that, I think that's where I'll stop. That's the why. Why do we do that? And also, just as a few times I get to speak to our employees a lot, just thank you every day for what you do for our community. Hopefully you hear that a lot. Really appreciate the fact that you've decided to work here, that you've decided to stay here. And again, I hope that we continue to try to make it really great for you to be here. So thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, so what can you expect from today's presentation? We're going to talk a little bit about the employer of choice and the innovative way this team approached to answering the question. The employer of choice for us is, to break it down, is how do we keep and attract awesome people to work here and that want to work here, and think of creative ways to actually keep people engaged and interested and excited about working for the city of Hillsborough. This team actually looked at a couple ways to answer that. We actually came up with 4 C's, which we'll call communications, connections, culture, and considerations. And the group behind me is actually going to spend a little time talking about that. And so for right now, Jessica is going to start us off.
Oh, I haven't even started talking yet, so that might be premature. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Stark, and I work in the Human Resources Office. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about some of the background. So how did we get to those C's that Brian mentioned? So when we started the project, we were tasked with doing some research. So on a national level, what are companies doing, private industry, what are public service entities doing to be employers of choice? So we spent a ton of time digging through articles, digging through the internet, et cetera. We also were very privileged to take the opportunity to go to Austin. The city of Austin is rated as one of the top employers in the nation, and they're doing a ton of great stuff. So we spent a couple of days with their staff learning about their programs, learning about what they offer their employees, just talking face-to-face with their employees about why they love working at the city of Austin. So that was a really invaluable experience to learn what a gigantic city is doing to treat their employees really well and make them want to stay there. So we had the opportunity to learn what other spaces are doing, but we also really took the opportunity to learn from City of Hillsborough employees about what we are and are not doing to be an employer of choice. Something that was really interesting is when we asked ourselves that question, we didn't know if we were an employer of choice. So we wanted to figure out, are we? Are there things we can do better? So we connected with city staff in two different ways. We sent out a survey, just an online survey, and then we also had face-to-face interviews with staff. And we tried really hard to get a wide breadth of staff. So we wanted part-time staff, we wanted full-time staff, we wanted staff that had been here for only a couple months and staff that had been here for a ton of years, to get a sense of really what is the city doing that makes employees feel valued and where are the spaces that we need to kind of increase some of that. So after connecting with all those different people, we took that information back and came together as a group. And something that we all kind of thought at the start of this project was that we would come up with this one answer. We'd be like, if we have this one thing, we'll be an employer of choice. And after gathering all that information, that's just not what happened. What ended up happening is that we found these themes that kind of highlighted a bunch of different spaces that we could really elevate to be an employer of choice. So to us, employer of choice, we use the acronym EOC. We kind of pictured a little Venn diagram with all of those C's that Brian talked about. So connection, communication, culture, coming together. And in the center of that is EOC. That's an employer of choice, is when you have those three C's working together, that's how you become an employer of choice. And what we learned, though, is that EOC is not just being an employer of choice. To be an employer of choice, you need to have employees feel like they have ownership to choose. Employees are engaging with our citizenry. There are so many different things that EOC can stand for to really highlight those three C's. And that's what we spend our time doing, is looking at those different philosophical themes and some different ideas for implementation under those to really elevate us as an employer of choice. And I'm going to turn it over to Hillary now, we're going to start diving into some of those C's and talk a little bit about the projects that are going to come out of each of those.
Thanks, Jessica. So, hi, it's so nice to see so many familiar and friendly faces. We're so lucky to work with such amazing people here at the city, including this group of people on the Eureka Challenge team. It was such a privilege and honor to get to spend this time. My name's Hillary. I work at the library and for the city, and I get to talk to you a little bit about the communication piece that came up during our research and our work on the project. So, communication, super easy, right? Like, really easy topic. But we do realize the importance of this topic. And I think what we found in everything, every research, every piece of paper we read, every article we read, every person we talked to, the city of Austin, companies we looked to, communication was tantamount. And we know we strive for communicating up, down, all around. We read email, we read blogs, we have so much to keep up with. But what we found through talking to most of you, especially with our survey data, is that people just want to know more. And they want to have those opportunities to connect face to face and talk more with their coworkers. So something that I'm really proud of is that leadership really heard us, that communication is not just some buzzword, it's actually really important. So the Eureka team that was already working through Corinne's communications department on communication and how to improve it internally is basically just getting like more resource, time to work on this with hopefully help from the Eureka team members ourselves. I think again, like we can over communicate and keep sending emails, but we want to look at like what makes sense. So departmental info is one of those things that we're actually breaking down silos right now and talking to the right people to decide what makes sense for internal pieces, who's reading it, who needs to read it, is it getting out there. Another like tangible thing I hope you'll see in the coming months is we'd like to explore new ways of getting information out by using digital signage, something that we saw at other places we visited like Intel and in Austin. And so IS and communications is working together to think about what makes sense. Again, no promises on timelines, but we're looking at creative ways to spread the word. There are a lot of things that will continue to come up, and one thing I want to promise on behalf of the Eureka team is that we are ambassadors for this and we'll keep helping to make communication better. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the next C, which I think is culture, with Miss Tanya.
Hi, I'm Tanya Bilderbeck. I'm in the water department. I got to talk to you about culture. So during this month-long project, we found through our interviews and our surveys that there was a real feeling of departments being siloed. There wasn't a unity across the city, and we needed to figure out how we were going to unify the city as one, to all be working together towards one end goal, whatever that goal may be. We are one organization. We also found that employees don't know or don't relate the jobs that they do to our core values and our mission statement in the city. And when you don't connect to the vision, you don't feel important. And that's not what we want. You all are important. We're important. Our organization is important to our citizens. So with that, we determined that the city needs to refocus how to integrate the Hillsborough way throughout everything that we do in our jobs, how we interact with each other, how we interact with the public. Some of the high-level focus areas that came out of this project was that we really needed to focus on everyone counts. That's another one of our EOCs. With that, we need to investigate the most impactful benefits for part-time staff to make them feel included and that they're just as valuable as the full-time staff. We also need to, Hillary's hot topic, we also need to prioritize innovation throughout the city. And we need to establish a marketing campaign around the city as a unified organization because we are Hillsborough. And with that, I'll turn it over to Amber.
Thank you, Ms. Tanya. Good morning, everybody. I just want to echo my thanks for you all being here. I'm talking about connection, and this is a great way to connect. Seeing all your faces and you taking the time to hear what we have to say, it means a lot. So one of the things that we heard from employees through surveys and just our passing by conversations is that they want to feel more connected. They want to feel more connected within their departments, but they want to feel connected across the city. And that's for resources, for their own employment growth. And that led us to the idea of a employee development program, something that will have to start slow because that's a big job to take on. But with all of you being involved, invested in our future as a city and our future as employees and all of these goals, collectively we have this great passion, and it's a great place to start for an employee development program. So there will be more to come on that. Another thing was the excitement that I gained from just hearing the passion that we as employees share and hold, and we all like being here, and that's a beautiful thing. So in that way, we are an employer of choice because we choose to be here and we share that. I know I talk about it and I share my 17 and a half years of being here. I've loved every minute of it. And I share that with people outside of the city. So making connections internally as well as externally is equally important. Another thing is this team. We made connections in a lot of interesting and fun ways, but that's the whole idea. So I encourage you guys to create your own internal teams with other departments. We gain resources, we gain friendships. I expanded the term coworker. It means so much more to me now, just from being a part of this team. And I hope you gain an understanding of how much passion lives in things that we do every day. And just remind yourselves that everything that you're doing, it means a lot. Enrique, I'd like to pass it on to you.
All right. So like Amber said, my name is Enrique Vega. Eureka Vega is fine, yeah. Enrique Vega. And I'm going to be talking about considerations. And what is consideration? Well, there's a reason they put me in the podium and not walk around crazy because caffeine usually kicks in. I'm like that for those of you who don't know me. But really what we're saying is that I would like to read a quote, small quote that followed me throughout the project. I found somewhere, I can't remember who, so copyrights, I'm sorry. It says, "We become one of a kind when we stop acting like just another." So we are one of a kind, and we want to be one of a kind. And that's why we feel so passionate about being the employer of choice, because we're the best of the best, meaning the whole city. So a few considerations are crazy things, because we always have room for crazy ideas. We can't promise they're going to be moving forward, but we are actually considering a few of them. And one thing that we realized throughout this project is that in order to innovate, we have to stretch those boundaries. So a few ideas that we came across, and I'll mention, and a few of them I'm really, really excited about, and I know some of you will too. For example, pet insurance. Why not? We all love our pets, right? Our little cats and dogs. So why not? Actually, some people do provide, but not everybody. So we're considering that. We're stretching those boundaries and see, can we get those? Another good one is the swagger store, and we will actually see some of that later before the party. It's going to be a nice fashion show, so please stay tuned. Swagger. If we work for the best employer, why not show it off, right? So, swagger store. Another one that I really love, nap pods. Why not? After so much coffee, what happens? Caffeine runs down. I need a nap, and I know most of you need a nap once in a while too. A really, really good one, and again, we're stretching the boundaries, doesn't mean it's gonna happen. Beer Truck Friday, right? Food trucks were a success. Why not? So again, all these considerations we need to keep in mind. What we're saying is, why not? And that's what we need to ask. Why not? Not just say we can't do things. Maybe we can. We just need to ask. And we really appreciate that all of you are so involved and passionate about this. And we're very thankful if you all chip in, right? If you have ideas crazier than mine, I'm happy to hear them, believe me. And we are very happy to hear them. We need to stretch those boundaries. And there's more, so maybe after the talk I can give you more crazy ideas. But I would like now to pitch into, our mentor, Steve Plessett.
So one of the questions that we typically ask in any Eureka project is, so what? Right? You've told me about all this challenge. We don't know if we're employer choice, or we might be, or how can we get there? And we went to Austin and we burned through 1,000 Post-it notes and 50 flip charts, and we had all these meetings and these deep conversations. And so what was the result of that? And the really important thing that I want to get across today is that the team was tasked with taking this huge idea that's circling out there that no one is assigned to advance, and trying to bring that down into some recommendations that the organization could look at. We come up with this concept of employer choice, and when we first started having conversations about it, we didn't even know what that meant. It means a lot of different things to different people. What does it mean to each person that you work for an employer choice? And really, that was one of the feelings that we hoped that we could come up with ideas to advance, that people are proud to work for the city of Hillsborough, that they're excited to tell their friends or family or other folks that they know, that's where I work. It's a great organization, and here's what it's like. So we looked at, it's not always about, many times when you do an improvement project, you come up with some ideas that we all kind of already knew. When we talk about an employee development program, we have an employee development program. We just want to expand on that. So there's some things that we expected, some feedback that we got that we kind of expected. But there's also some things that we didn't expect, like it's not all about money. That's pretty fantastic to hear. And unlike the Googles of the world, it's not all about free food and ping pong tables either. Sorry, table tennis for you professionals out there. There's more to it. There's more to creating that feeling that I work for the greatest place, the greatest city in the universe, as our city manager likes to advocate. So really the goal that the team had set before them was to come up with a series of recommendations, and the next steps after that aren't on these folks' shoulders were that we're going to try to find a way to implement those best ideas. And a strange thing happened along the way. This group felt so much ownership for those ideas, for that concept of becoming this greatest place to work, that they've kind of carried forward a little bit. So we've taken a little bit more time than we expected from this group, and it's because they own this concept, right? These recommendations. They're really passionate about making this the greatest place in the universe to work. So I'm really proud of them. I'm excited for that, and we're still working through how that can happen, how we can advance that, those next steps. And as Brian mentioned earlier, we're trying to update this internal SharePoint site, this a website to keep track of the ideas and what's happening with them, so that it's not just thrown into some big void, right? They're actually steps that are happening, and we're very proud of that, very excited about that. So I'm going to pass it to Hillary to talk a little bit more about moving forward.
Thanks, Steve. So we want to leave plenty of time for questions, which is really about 7 minutes unless anybody wants to hang out and chat with us as they get ready for the holiday party. Some of you look pretty dressed and ready for that. I did want to just say, though, that yes, in an ideal world, we could have given you this wrapped up in a box with a big bow, and like we say, here it is, here's employer of choice. But as you heard, it's a lot more than that. We were given the time, and we're so grateful to the city leadership for that, to really think deeply. And if you're ever given this chance to join Eureka Challenge team, do Eureka first, please, because you learn very important tools and also meet lots of people across the city. But the challenge team idea is something we want to see carry forward. And so we hope to have another team, I think, in 2018. And this team is ready to mentor. We'd love to talk to you more about it. We have a lot of things that we've learned along the way that could have gone even better, but bumps along the road are important for innovation. And also having time to think is important for innovation. So again, thank you to everybody who will be receiving emails from us to set up meetings to talk more about everything you heard about, especially our human resources friends. This project is really about HR, and we're so grateful that you've been open to hearing from us. We're going to be just talking even more in the coming months. I promise. We're accountability buddies, and we like to call ourselves champions of the movement. So if you'd like to join our movement, please do. And I think with that, we'll turn it over to questions. Team? Okay. Brian?
This is where I get to play talk show host, and I can cross that line finally. If anyone has any questions, I invite you to ask for the mic, and you can go ahead and ask the questions. But before we start that, I would like to thank you all for your time today. The whole team appreciates you guys coming. If you have any questions for any of us at any time, even outside of this room, all of us are willing and eager to answer any questions you have, okay? Does anyone have a question today? Oh, don't be shy. Yeah, stand up. I'm like Phil Donahue.
Stand up. Oh, yeah, stand. Okay.
Hi. Will you introduce yourself too?
First time caller, long time listener. I just wondered, could you share with us maybe 2 significant takeaways you got from this when you were at the City of Austin? Things you thought were impactful or surprising or unusual.
Go here. Will you repeat the question?
The question was, what are 2 impactful things that you learned from the city of Austin? One thing that was, I think, really important to all of us, it's probably the most impactful thing, we're on the right track. So the city of Austin has 14,000 employees. They're just massive. And it was crazy because we would walk into a room and people would start introducing themselves and not know who their coworkers were. It was bizarre. They would come up to us and be like, "Hi, do you work for the city of Austin?" And we were like, "No, we're the guests." So I think the most impactful thing for me was that they talked a lot about their programs. They talked about employee development. They talked about just all of the different things they do. We're doing all of those things in some capacity. So the city of Hillsborough, in comparison for size, is totally taking the right steps to take care of its employees. Most of the presentations we heard were doing some form or fashion of that. We're doing process improvement. We're doing innovation. We're doing all of these things. So we are really comparative to the city of Austin, we're just a little bit smaller.
And
Better. Thanks, Jessica.
Yeah, anyone else?
Any more questions?
Melissa Moore, and I loved all the crazy ideas, but the issue that I'm most concerned about is the one about part-time benefits. And so I know that this is going to be a long, tough process to figure out exactly what's happening, but is there any timeline of when our part-time employees may see some benefits?
I don't feel like I can totally answer the timeline question because so much of it does rely on conversations that need to happen in human resources and with the senior leadership. But I do feel like in every conversation we had in our stock take meetings, where weekly we actually met and presented to Michael and Sue Ling, and Lisa came to one of those and is returning as our human resources director and was very passionate about this project and including part-time benefits. So I think the conversations and the time we got to dig into the philosophy was really well spent. And I guess for those of you who know me from the library work I do and with my partners, especially at Parks and Rec, we talk a lot about what we can do for part-timers. So I assure you, it became a very proud moment when I think even my teammates started to see that we're about everyone counts. And that carried through the entire project. So it's at the top of the list, but I don't have a timeline answer. But we'll keep you posted on the SharePoint site as much as possible.
Any more questions?
I'm Tasha Level from Parks and Recreation. As much as I love pet insurance and I love my dog, any consideration towards paid parental leave?
Another one that is on the list. So, I'm sorry. The question was, as much as you love pet insurance, did I get that right? We're wondering about paid parental leave. So there was actually a long list. We actually made a scroll that was like this, right? Michael has it in his office. And there are a lot of things on there, including that. So we did a lot of research with the metro area, especially thanks to help from human resources staff to look at those levels of tiered benefits and things like that. So parental leave or looking at different tiers of leave is definitely on lists for research. And again, I think you'll hear a lot of information about that in the coming months too into next fiscal year. Mhm.
Any more questions?
Were there really frogs in the Public Works building, Brian?
Yes, completely. The infestation was impressive. We found dried out little frogs all daily almost sometimes.
We were in the old Public Works building.
Not the new one, just to clear that out.
I'm Christy. I work in human resources. If you could implement one of the things that you learned, what would it magically, just like today, what would it be?
I'm letting someone else answer that first. Good question. That's amazing. Love it.
You mean one of the ideas that came up? If I could implement anything, it would probably be an Office of Innovation, just to really carry the movement forward throughout the city.
I would echo that, just more creative spaces for us all to make those connections that I talked about earlier, and engage in what each other does on a daily basis. And it's a reasonable place to start. It's not necessarily Beer Truck Friday, but it would get us there. You could do it after, you know?
Mine would be something that we did during the project. Hillary mentioned we had stock takes every week with Michael and leadership, so we had to kind of give these massive presentations. And one of the things we mocked up was an employee development website. So the opportunity to actually do some skill sharing on the website, to sign up to do like fun classes with your coworkers, to do different tours of city facilities, things like that. So if I could implement one thing, it would be an employee development platform of some kind.
And Jessica Stolman, I would completely echo that, but also in that sense of everyone counts, so expanding that to the entire city's staff, our part-timers, full-timers, and really looking at like how people contribute, so in terms of employee development.
So yeah, Beer Truck Friday. Nah, but in all seriousness, I think being champions of the movement, getting people on board, because have you realized a lot of it is it's big, very big, and it's a little intangible kind of implement. So we need a city help. So we need everybody to chip in to be part of it. So I would say that would be the first step. We need different departments to be involved. We have to realize that some things might seem small for one department or one division, but it might impact others as well. So I think that is the key part. Be champions of the movement. Everybody be involved, because that would make everything smoother and we could be able to implement more things. So I would say that would be the first step for me.